Qualys is introducing a new prescription for security, and it's free. Global IT asset discovery and inventory. Activate it today at securityweekly.com/Qualys so you can achieve 100% near real-time visibility across your hybrid environments. Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is unprotected attack paths that allow threats to compromise vulnerable targets in the cloud and data center. But traditional microsegmentation is too complex and time-consuming. There's a better approach. Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable and management that's zero touch. Driven by machine learning, Edgewise automatically builds policies that protect any application in any cloud without any changes to your network. They provide measurable improvement by quantifying attack path risk reduction and verifying software identity before it communicates to stop application compromises and data breaches. To see how to eliminate your network attack surface, visit securityweekly.com/Edgewise. This year's welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly. I was jumping right into announcements. Mr. Matt Alderman is here with me. Jeff Mann is here with me. And just a quick announcement before we get into the interview for this segment. This year's Compass Security Cybersecurity Symposium is being held at Twin Rivers Casino in Lincoln, Rhode Island on September 25th, just 15 minutes outside Providence. The venue has plenty of free and easy parking. Speakers include our guest for this segment, security and social engineering experts Chris Hadnagy, as well as myself will be giving presentations. You can use the discount code SW2019 and save $20 on registration. What to say about Chris Hadnagy? He's no stranger to the show. He's no stranger to the security community. His skin is thick enough to survive even the pranks by Dave Kennedy. He's been to the Pentagon and briefed generals and government officials. He created the Social Engineer LLC company, in addition to the not-for-profit socialengineer.org and the Innocent Lives Foundation. In here today to talk about really all of it, maybe with a little focus on ILF, as we'll say, is Chris Hadnagy. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Paul. Actually, you were the first podcast I ever did in this industry.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great honor. I mean, Chris is, obviously been around for 17 years, so I've seen Chris at probably almost every single conference I've been to in my lifetime. So
yeah. I mean, you were the first way back in OffSec days.
Yes.
I was on your show.
Yes. Were you working for Offensive Security at the time, Chris?
I was their operations manager.
Yes. That's when we first met, probably at Black Hat, probably when I first started becoming very friendly with Dave Kennedy. We were all there for like training and stuff like that, I think. Yeah.
Dave Kennedy. And it helps that the podcast has been around,
for that long. And Chris, you have your own podcast, which you've had some outstanding guests on as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Then we just did our 120th episode, so that's 10 years.
Congratulations. That's outstanding.
I feel very old, I gotta say.
But now, today you wear two hats, right? Social Engineer LLC and Innocent Lives Foundation, correct?
Yeah.
First, give us a little insight into Social Engineer LLC. Like, basically, people hire you and your team to conduct physical penetration tests and social engineering tests. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So it's we focus only on social engineering aspects. So it doesn't mean we don't do any network pen testing, but that's always involved in our SE stuff. So we get hired to break into places physically, like testing their physical infrastructure. And then we get hired to do like phishing and vishing and other types of SE vectors that are remote, all with the goal of figuring out how to fix, educate, not humiliate and embarrass, but to fix and educate those who fall for it.
Right.
So that includes, social engineering tactics to figure out how to get into a facility and get information that you need to, kind of finish your test then.
Yeah, for the physical portion, it's kind of fun because although we do the, late at night, let's break in when no one's there, more commonly we're asked to do the broad daylight, 9 to 5 working hours. We need to be able to walk through the front door and get into the server room using some pretext that allows security to break all their rules and to let us right through. So it's fun and it's interesting to always try to come up with different vectors and to see how they work, why they work, when they work, and then be able to help fix it.
It always amazed me, like how easy it is if you have an imagination, I think, right? And recently, I think I was scrolling through Facebook or something, and I saw this video, and it was of these two guys just dressed in normal clothes, not uniforms or like vests, bright orange vests, or just regular clothes, carrying a ladder. And like I don't know if you've seen this one, Chris, right? But they're like, we're just going to see how many places let us in just because we're carrying a ladder. And like you see them walk into all these places that like getting let into all that they should not be for the simple fact that they're carrying a ladder. Now I imagine you do similar kind of stuff, right?
We do. And not only that, but I think if it was the same guys or not, but those two guys got into the Super Bowl last year doing that.
Just carrying a ladder.
Just carrying a ladder. They put on some high-vis vest.
Yeah.
They put a Bluetooth headset in. And as they walk towards the security gate, they'd be like, yeah, Frank, we're almost there with the ladder. And security would just open the doors. And then the second security gate, yeah, Frank, we're almost there with the ladder. Open the second. They put the ladder down. They walk out onto the field, take their vest off, go up the little stairs, sit in the $50,000 seats, and watch the whole Super Bowl sitting right there.
Oh my God! Is it really that? Is it that easy all the time? It can't be.
It's not that easy all the time. I mean, this past year, we had a few facilities that were heavily armed that we had to break into, and those tend to not be as easy as just carrying a ladder. You have to really think, and then you have to also be cautious because there is a risk of somebody who's not going to follow the rules and shoot first and ask questions later.
Right.
So it's not always that easy, but as humans, we tend to be willing and wanting to trust other people. So if we give them the proper pretext, most people tend to be like, yeah, this got to be true because who would make that up? Who would lie about this?
Yeah. Right. I worked in nuclear power for 7.5 years, and we always had to go through X-ray machines and the single man trap doors, right? To me, that's probably a little harder to get into walking through the front door, maybe the back door. But, in certain scenarios, it would be really difficult to get in because there is a layer of security, physical security in certain environments.
Well, we just did one, 7 warehouses that we had to break into, and they had a ceiling-to-floor, wall-to-wall metal man trap that when you came through, you got buzzed into this cage, and then a security guard with an RFID badge actually had to swipe so the cage came all the way around so you could enter the building. After you got through that, you had to go through a metal detector, and then after that, you had to present your government ID in order to gain access, a visitor badge, and then to be escorted. I used the ruse that what we did is we used Google Maps, and we went around one of the warehouses, and we found that they use a trash compactor made by a particular company. Let's say it rhymes with waste management. And then what we did is we went and found the actual compactor model. I downloaded all the schematics for it, so I had printouts. And I went to the building and said, that you may have a recall on the compactor. I need to go check it. So they buzzed me through the man trap, believe it or not. I went through the metal detector, perfectly fine. And then when I get up there, I don't want to give them my real ID because I'm supposed to be someone fake. So I say to the guy, oh, crap, you kidding me? I left my wallet in the car. And I kind of give him like a real sad look, like, I don't really want to go back out and do all that. And he's like, man, I need an ID. I can't let you in without it. So I made a fake badge, which we printed here with our badge printer. And it has my picture, fake name, barcode, company logo, whole 9 yards. So I say, hey, I have this, it has all my ID on it and everything. You can use this badge. And the guy thinks about it for a second. He's like, yeah, okay. Takes a photocopy of that, gives me a visitor badge, and now I'm roaming the whole place, just by using that pretext. So that worked out of 7 warehouses. That worked 7 times.
Wow.
Yeah, you have all the front security controls. You have all that in place. You still get through.
I hadn't. We were at the Layer 8 conference, and Chris, I think you were here. Were you here this year for that? I think you were.
Not this past year. I was here the year before.
The year before. I had an interesting conversation with Ira Winkler about defenses against this, right? And he basically stated that as security people, we tend to make it more complicated than it needs to be. We tend to talk about the attack that Chris just described and all the nuances that go in it and all the ways we could maybe detect that. I was like, I try and make it simple. Basically, you create very simple rules. Nobody comes through security unless they're authorized by someone that I call on the phone, right? Like,
that's right.
And that's the rule. Nobody does, like Chris can present fake credentials and carry a ladder and all that other thing. All that stuff shouldn't matter. You shouldn't train people to say, well, if they carry a ladder, you should be suspicious. If they forgot their ID in the car, you should be suspicious. It's like too much for them to remember. I was like, if someone comes through, you got to pick up the phone and call someone or a list of people to call to make sure that someone said, yeah, someone from a waste management company is going to come to check. And if no one says that, they don't get access. Those simple rules really, I don't know, Chris, what your recommendations for companies are, right? Help stop this, right?
That would have stopped us. I mean, we did a similar ruse at a healthcare facility where we had 3 buildings to break into, and 2 of them we used pest control, and it worked perfect. They let us right through. Nobody questioned us. The third one, we went, and the security guy, nice young man, super polite, he looked at his list and he said, I don't have you on here as an authorized access. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that last minute because of these spiders and this and that. And he's like, if you're not on the list, I can't let you in. So I'm like, crap, like this guy's going to stop us. So we're like, okay, well, we'll call the office and check. So we leave. I give him a business card, a fake business card. We leave. I go out in the car. We do a little OSINT on the computer, find the guy who's supposed to authorize us. We find his phone number on LinkedIn. I spoof the phone number. I call the security desk and I say, hey, this is Roger. I just had these 2 people from a pest control company get turned away. I need them in here to do spraying. Please put their name on the list. So now I get our name on the list. So now I go back an hour later and I say to the guy, hey, I got called. I told that my name is now on the list. We can get in. And he looks and he says, yep, your name's on the list, but I have a question. And when you gave me your business card, I Googled your company. And I don't see you anywhere in this state.
Wow.
I don't see a company with this name in the state. And I'm like, crap. Like, what's this guy, right? So I'm like, oh, well, we're relatively new. We just started like a little while ago. And he's like, well, that's odd because your card says family owned for 20 years. And I'm like, dang, like this guy's about to nail me. Like, I'm not going to have any defense. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I said to him, well, we're family owned, but in a different state. We just moved to this state. And he's like, oh, so where did you move to? And I'm like, crap, that way, and I point, and he's like, well, that's the industrial section. Like, where there, do you have a pest control facility? And I'm like, oh, we'll pass that. And he's like, you're not from here. And I'm like, oh man, there's nothing. I mean, at that point, I'm like, I'm still trying to think of things, but I'm stuttering now and I'm sweating.
Right.
Like, he's like, I don't care what you say. You're not getting in this building. And he would not let me in. And I'm like, at the end, we said to the company, this guy needs to be your trainer for all your security guards.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
This guy did everything right. He didn't just trust the list. He did research. He critically thought. He questioned me.
Right.
He made me answer the points. And when I couldn't do it, done, you're not getting in.
So I have a question on that. Out of curiosity, and this is probably just more your impression, Chris. Do you think that he was? I'm trying to think of how to. Was he that diligent, and did he care that much, or was he that bored and had nothing to do, so he's going to Google you type of thing,
or both?
If I had, so you're right. I don't know 100%, but if I had to gauge it based on him, so he looked like a well-built young man. Looked like he really took care of himself, worked out. His uniform was neat and tidy. His hair was perfect. He wasn't sitting behind the desk when we came in the building. He was standing at his security post. Everything about him said, I'm serious about my job. And it wasn't like, I got nothing to do here. Like, everything about him was, you're not getting into my building unless I can prove you deserve to be here.
Yeah. Maybe former military or something like
that. He sounds like a Marine.
Yeah, he appeared so. He appeared, just his look, his body type, the way he stood, he just appeared like, this is, you're not getting past my post, man. That ain't happening, not on my watch.
I have another question, too, for you. In your experience, the companies that you do these exercises for, these engagements for, is it more often a lack of procedures, documented procedures, rules of how to engage visitors or people that approach you, or is it simply people don't follow the rules that exist?
I love that question. And it comes back to something that Paul just said, is they make these rules and policies, but then they allow for interpretation for the human. So they say in that one warehouse job, an ID needs to be photocopied before you give a visitor badge. There was no rule that said, if it's not a government ID, do not pass go, do not collect 200. It was an ID needs to be photocopied. So when I presented what looked like an authentic ID, he was like, okay, I'll photocopy that. That fulfills my job role.
Right. I need to photocopy something. Yeah.
Yep. It allows me to bypass this procedure because I did the thing. And the anytime we allow the human to make the critical thought without a process in place, you're asking them to base it on their emotions, their own feelings. What's happened today? Did I come into work and have an argument with my wife? Is my dog sick? Is my house a mess? I'm tired. I'm stressed. And now you're just presenting me with this. Maybe I don't give a crap anymore. Go ahead. Go. Here's your pass.
Well, to speak to the emotion part too, Chris, some of it could be fear, right? If I put myself in that security guard, if I don't let someone in, let's say, right, and they're, like I worked at a university, right, maybe they're friends with the dean or the president of the college. Right. Now I don't let them in. Now I'm in trouble, right? Now my manager sit me down in their office and like, I got a call from the president's office. They're really upset. Like, you didn't, allow this rule in the firewall. You didn't allow this person in the building, and I'm in trouble. And they want to avoid that situation. Understand?
That's 100%. That's why if you make the policy and the process so that it's unavoidable, right? You say to that person, so let's change that policy. It must be a government ID. You must have a reference that called in to get you on the list.
Yep.
And even then, you're still going to be escorted and supervised.
Yes.
Now imagine that. Now let's say I have a fake government ID. Let's say I get someone to call and put me on the list and they have a fake phone number. But now someone escorting me the whole time, what can I do?
Yeah.
How am I going to possibly do any damage to the company if there's some guy sitting there, watching me in every step I take? So all I did was gain entry, walk to a trash compactor, and have to leave right after because there was some guy escorting me. You make those the policies, it makes it really hard for an attacker to do something terrible.
Right. And then that's more opportunity for that security guard, let's say, to have a conversation with you. And like that security guard did, and basically you run out of ideas to make stuff up, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. You get yourself caught up.
A couple comments. In my opinion, no security guard or admin, since you threw that in there, Paul, should ever get in trouble in their company for doing their job and following the rules as they exist. What I'm hearing Chris say, though, is the way that the rules and the procedures are often written, they're kind of reinforcing and setting up a behavior that's bound to fail. And I've got up on my other monitor one of my favorite movies, just their IMDb entry, the movie Sneakers, which is what kind of started all of this. And it came out in 1992, and I've dabbled in these types of engagements, early on in my private sector. Well, I'm not going to say if I did it in the. Let's just say I've done it in the past, and. I guess it has always baffled me, and it continues to baffle me that 27 years after this movie came out, this is still such an endemic problem at so many organizations. So my question to Chris is, you're mentioning the rules need to be changed. Do you guys offer here's a different way to do the rules sort of template or package, or does it always come in the form of training?
There's no template.
So what do you do to fix the problem, I guess?
Yeah. So the answer is yes, but there's no template, right? So what we do after, in, let's say, the case of the warehouses, our remediation to them is working on policies that take the decision out of the security guard and makes it so it's very much harder for anyone to do what we did. In the case of the healthcare organization, what we did is we used their really good security guard as the model. And we said, look at what this guy did. If every one of your security stations did this, we would have made it nowhere. And we asked them to have him become an internal trainer to bring those policies across the whole company. So the answer is training, but it's not templated, and it's not the same at every organization, because what we often find is that the problems will not be the same. And we just can't say it's a human problem, because we're human. We're all going to fall for things at certain times. So you need to take that element out of it and say, how do we make policies and procedures that make it difficult for the human to mess it up?
Right. So if I can ask this question, and how often do you have repeat customers, and how often do you fail the second or the third or the fourth time?
So we often have repeat customers. Oftentimes repeat customers are a part of our hope and our desires. We have a lot of clients that have been with us 5, 6, 7. We have one that's with us 9 years. And what we find is that when one of our clients or customers takes all the advice and remediation that we give them, usually within 2 to 3 years of working with them, we are consistently being shut down, and we need to now change our game, right? It doesn't mean we use the same pretext, but we need to change what we're doing and how we're doing it to a more hardcore level in order to get the same results. And then we remediate that. And eventually we have clients now, like we just know that we're going and it's not going to work really great.
Right.
They know that, but it's still a great test to prove that new people haven't made them more insecure. But that's a great problem to have. If every one of my clients was shutting me down 100% of the time, I would feel like the most successful security guy on the planet. It's not great for your own ego, but who cares? It's great as a business.
Right.
If you had that problem.
Yeah, it's funny. I have visited more data centers that I can count over the years, especially in my years as a QSA, and so I haven't tried to exploit the procedures for gaining access to sensitive areas, but I've certainly witnessed the procedures. And you telling the story about this guy that just wouldn't let you in reminds me the best security guard I ever experienced. I won't say who the customer was. I'll just say it was a Midwestern company. It was probably like a 55 or 60-year-old woman who, I mean, sweet little old lady, but she didn't give an inch. She didn't take any guff. It was by the book. Here's the rules. Here's the process. You're not getting past me. And it was humorous, just the way, because she was so diminutive and not somebody that you would meet on the street and think is a threatening person, but damn was she good at her job.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, Jeff. When I worked at the university, when I first started there, our data center was in the basement of the building that we worked in. And when I joined the sysadmin team, they were like, we got to go introduce you to the person who works down there. We got to make sure your name's on the list, because she's like that lady that Jeff described, right? She was like, no one, if I don't know the person, they're not getting in, right? So a couple of years later, we have a pen test team come in. It was part of a requirement to have an external pen test, and they were doing a physical assessment. I'm like, look, you guys are probably going to have a lot of success in the rest of the organization, but good luck when you go in the basement to get in the data center. And that's exactly what they reported. It's like, I went down there and jiggled a couple of doors and the locks, and she opened the door and she was like, yeah, I don't know you, get out. That was it. There was no, he could have said the president of the university said I could be here, and here they are on the phone. She was like, nope, I don't know you, you're not getting in, right? And those are great employees to have, certainly in those positions, right?
They are really awesome.
So, Chris, at some juncture, when did you decide that you were going to create the Innocent Lives Foundation? How did that come to be a thing?
So I had a really horrifying experience at a client that we were doing some network scans for them and working on securing their infrastructure. And through scanning, we found that there was one IP address that was constantly using the Tor network. And we had asked the company, is this person, should they be on Tor? And they said, no, there's absolutely no reason why anyone at the organization would be using the Tor network at all for their job. So we, of course, couldn't see anything that they were doing. So we encouraged them to install either a keylogger or analyze their machine to figure out what this guy was doing. It ended up that he was flying overseas, and he was molesting kids and videotaping it, and then selling and trading those videos online with like-minded perverts. And that guy ended up in prison, and that felt really good. Not, of course, what he was doing. It was horrible. It was horrific, but it felt good that, I'm just a hacker. I didn't think our skills would ever be used for something like that. And when that guy ended up sitting in prison, I felt like, wow, we just did something life-altering. We just saved a bunch of kids. And then I was telling that story in a class I was teaching, and there was a student in there who was working for an organization that dealt with human trafficking. And they said, hey, would you help us on a case, that we can really use the help? And I said, sure. And that ended up leading to a guy who was bringing young girls in from Asian countries to America to work in massage parlors as sex slaves, and when he's in prison. And I was like, again, that felt tremendous that our skill set in this world, this industry, could be used for that. So I said, I have a crazy idea. Let me toss this over the fence to a few friends and just see what they think. What if I started an organization where people who have this skill want to volunteer time to work with law enforcement to help fight this type of crime? And I went to my lawyer, said, is this going to land me in prison? Like, is this bad? And he was like, no, this is great. He was so enthused by it. He was like, I want to be on the board. I want to help you do this. I went to a few friends not in the industry who were all like, wow, we would support this. And then I announced it at DEF CON 2.5 years ago. And the results were overwhelming. It was like, I couldn't believe how much support we got. Jump forward 2 years and we're a fully functional 501c3 with, over 30 people volunteering and 2 people full-time working at the organization, completely funded by donations. And we've just helped start 65 cases with both local and federal law enforcement that have to do with child predation and child pornography and things like that.
So how cases come in because law enforcement reaches out to you for assistance? Is that kind of how
it's funny.
Cases come in?
It's funny you say that. I was talking to my friend who's in law enforcement, and I was telling him about past cases I worked on years ago, right? And he's like, do law enforcement come to you, or do you go to law enforcement, or is it kind of mix and match, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways that cases come in. First, we have a report a case section on our website, the innocentlivesfoundation.org. So sometimes what happens is family members, parents, or children themselves who have been victims come and they report to us things that happen. Maybe they went to police first and the police said they couldn't help them. So they come to us and then we jump on and we try to help them find enough proof to start a case. Because the thing that I think is important as I answer this question is that we're not a vigilante group, right? So we're not hacking anything. We are doing everything possible so that way we can take a file and hand it to a law enforcement agent so they can effect an arrest. We're not trying to be a Chris Hansen, trap a guy in some kind of weird net and then embarrass him into changing. That's not the goal. It is our end goal is to unmask and uncover these people and then get them taken care of through the judicial system properly. So when someone comes to us with a case, if they're like, hey, we want you to hack this server because we know there's child porn on it, that's not us. That's not what we do. Plus, I'm not going to risk my family, my freedom, my business to do something illegal. So you don't fight illegal things with illegal things. I mean, that's great in comic books. It doesn't work really well in real life. So we have to do everything above the law. And because of that, we have been reached out by law enforcement. I'll give you a common scenario. Maybe there's law enforcement, like a small department in a state that doesn't have a great tech defense network. They don't have people in their department that understand the internet or the dark web. They don't have people that really know how to do OSINT. And it's not because they're dumb. They're just, they have a budget. They can hire so many cops, so many people to do things, and their budget doesn't allow for that. So now they find out about our organization. They reach out and they say, hey, we got this guy. We know he molested some kids. He's on the run. Is there anything you could do to help us? And we get all the information and we track him through social media. We uncover who he is online. We uncover his monikers that he's using. We try to develop as much proof as possible. We hand it back to the law enforcement agents, and then they can go and arrest him, track him, do whatever they need to do.
It's kind of like a forensics investigation, right? Really is what it is you're out trying to figure out who this person is, what handles are they using, their activity, documenting all that, building a case file that would hold up in a court of law to be able to say, here's all the evidence we have about this person, the activities he's been doing, so that law enforcement can actually go get a warrant and prosecute then.
Yeah. And if we do something illegal in that matter, right? So now let's say we go and we We find the password to his email, and then we log into his email and we see all these nude pictures of kids. We've done something that without a warrant that now will make that case go away. This guy walks.
Right.
He walks, and now he's out to do more harm to kids. So one of our founding principles is that everything we do has to be above the law. So that way we can hand this to a cop. The cop can go steps 1 through 50 or whatever it is, 1 through 10, reproduce all those steps, get this guy arrested, and they don't even need us in court. The law enforcement always finds this to be most unbelievable. We're asking, we don't want credit. We don't want you to give us credit. We don't want to be in the newspaper. We don't want to be mentioned by you. You could say thanks for your help, but we don't want to be mentioned in a case. We don't want the bad guys knowing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we want to operate by using our skill set. Our reward is internally as an organization. We know this guy ended up in prison because of us. That's our reward. This kid is safe because we helped find them. This person is no longer harming or filming kids. That's our reward. We don't need the credit in the world because we're not looking for the bad guys to be knowing what we're doing and who we're working with.
Right. And my next logical question is I want to ask you how you do some of this stuff, right? And we've covered it on the show and done some of that in our own careers, but I don't know how much you want to share. Like obviously these people don't want to be found, right?
Right.
They don't want people to discover what they're doing. Do they not use social media? And like, what do you do in that case, for example?
No, they use social media more often than you would imagine.
Interesting.
The interesting part, without getting into too much detail that would arm them, is a lot of times what we find, it's just like in the hacker world. The guys who are really, really, really great at this, the ones who know how to hide their tracks, we're not gonna catch them. What we look for is the low-hanging fruit, the people who haven't thought through their OPSEC, who haven't thought through the social media that they use and how they use it. And when we can find those people, generally they're linked to the people who are the larger network guys, the guys who are trading and selling and profiting. So as long as we can get enough of those, and you can scare the crap out of them, and not us, but the police can do that. They get them to turn and flip on some of these big guys, and that's how you close these cases where you see like a news story with 72 arrests. 8 people involved in this pedophile ring. That's how you get that, is because you caught a couple of the small low-hanging fruit guys that used the internet stupidly, and they folded on everyone else.
Right. Jeff?
First, Chris, thank you very much for what you do here.
It's outstanding. Yeah.
I'm involved with I support a couple different organizations, and I'm sure there are many more. Do you partner? Are you affiliated with organizations like the International Justice Mission or Love 146?
We're not partnered with them, but we love partners. See, this is one of the things I feel that NGOs or any nonprofits that we get wrong is we want to be silos and not joining forces with others. And I feel that's just really a bad, like, why reinvent the wheel? Let's join forces with anyone who wants to. Let's see where your strengths are, because I can't do everything. Right. So we're partnered with a group now called the National Child Protection Task Force. And they work closely in the judicial system to help get warrants and do things like that. We can't do that. So we're partnering with them. We're partnering with a group. I won't mention the name yet until we work it out, but they provide educational material, something that we don't do. So I love the idea of partnering with groups so we don't have to keep saying, hey, we need some education material. Let's go write that. No, guess what? You just spent years perfecting this message. Let's partner with you. Why do I need to go hire a judicial person when I can have this organization who does all of this? Let's partner with them. So I love the idea of partnering with organizations that don't. I'll tell you that Trace Labs, those folks over there that do the missing persons CTFs, they have sent so many people our way to help us with finding pedophiles and finding missing kids and things like that. They're amazing. Those guys and gals over there are unbelievable. And instead of fighting, saying, oh, we need to compete, they're like, hey, if you want something new, go help them. And we're like, hey, if you want a great CTF, go help. So we love the idea of partnering with folks.
Chris, as you think, I've got 3 kids, Paul's got 3 kids, right? When we see what our kids do, right? They're adopting social media. We've seen lots of stories in the press, teens and kids getting lured into different aspects of the things that are going on. Any advice for parents? Any advice for folks that are trying to deal with how do you protect your own kids, right? What are some of those kind of guidelines that you have to think about so that they are not part of this predatory environment?
Yeah, that's a really awesome question, by the way, with a really hard answer, because of course the easiest answer is get them out of those networks. But now think of this: one of the biggest pedo networks is on Kick. Instagram is being used by pedophiles. It's huge. So what are you going to do? Tell your teenage daughter that she can't be on Instagram? You're going to have a war in the house. So what I tell parents is learn how to monitor your kids, but don't do it sneakily. See, in our house, we have monitoring tools on my daughter's phone, and we tell her, hey, we're going to install this, and we don't care about reading your emails. I don't care about reading your text to your friends. What I care about is those weird messages that I may not know about, that I want to know about. What I care about is if I see you installing an app that I say, no, you can't install because we don't allow it in this house. And I want to be aware of that to protect you because I love you, not because I want to monitor your every move. And I find open, honest conversations have worked really well, at least in my family. And then proving that I'm holding up to my end of the bargain. I'm not reading all of her emails and texts. I'm not coming to her every time she slips up and says a bad word or does something that normal teenagers do. I'm only coming to her when I'm worried about something that I see as a threat. And if we ban an app, like if we say, look, no Kick. Right now, Kick is bad. I don't want you using it. If I see it get installed, now we're going to have an issue. The other thing I tell parents is, and this is a big deal, is use a password manager that you share with your kids, that all their passwords are in it. And let me give you the reason for that. And I know that feels really bad to every teenager hearing this, is like, I hate you, Chris, and I'm going to punch you next time I see you. But here's the reason why I say this. In every case that we worked for a missing child, when the parents had access to their accounts, we were able to more quickly find that child than when they didn't. So if they had an Instagram account and the parents knew the passwords and we can log in and we can see the last times they checked in, we knew where those kids were quicker. When we can find a Facebook account that we can log in and see, hey, this is where they logged in, we can track them faster. And parents who don't have that access, we were oftentimes waiting for a child to post or do something just to figure out where they were. And you got to get warrants, and warrants sometimes can take days or weeks or maybe never happen if you can't prove a crime. So those two things alone, actually three, if you want to start with open, honest conversation, monitoring all devices that your kids have access to, and using a password manager with shared passwords, those things can really help a parent be more involved in what their children are doing online. It's not 100% guarantee for safety, but it makes them not the low-hanging fruit.
It's interesting. My oldest son started middle school actually today, and I did the same thing to have access to his accounts just in case, for exactly what you're describing.
But are there good tools out there? Because when I'm an Apple user, right? And if you go look at some of the, Apple doesn't do a really good job of doing some of this monitoring. Microsoft did, and have made some changes in their programs, but I don't have Microsoft products in my house anymore. What are some of those good tools that we should be looking at as parents to install on these devices to do that kind of monitoring? Because like in the Apple world, I don't know what they are.
So I'll give you, again, kids are going to hate me. Kid Logger is one that does a good job. Custodio does a decent job. That's Qustodio. And then for monitoring, I use Life 360 because that gives me real-time location of a child at all times. Custodio does that too, but it also with iDevices, Custodio doesn't give you the introspect into who they're texting. It doesn't give you all of that. It just tells you, they used WhatsApp for 12 hours today. They were on Instagram for 2 hours. It tells you those kinds of things, but it also allows you to have time off. So what I can do with Custodio for my daughter's phone is I can say your bedtime's 11 p.m. So at 11 p.m., your phone no longer works. And that means that they can't sneak it. They can't be up all night chatting with friends. They can't be chatting with some perv online in the middle of the night. That the phone is shut off. And Life 360 gives me their location. And and you could see with Custodio like what websites they visit, what apps they install, what kind of things they do there.
And at the home network, as my kids, as many of yours probably do, have access to multiple devices, right?
Yeah.
Certainly the older one got my hacker gene, so there's like, oh, you block my phone, I'm just going to use my laptop or my tablet or take someone else's phone or tablet, right? So at home I use Circle. Just pretty good filtering and monitoring in the home. It has the time thing,
Yeah, Circle good. It works right on the app. I also have Custodio on my daughter's laptop, which works. She has a Mac. It works on that. And Circle works really well. So let's talk about this honestly for a second. The five of us sitting here, we're in this industry, and it's easy for us to say, "Oh yeah, monitor your home network." Now let's put this in the shoes of a parent who has no clue what that even means. They bought the router, they took it out of the box, they plugged it in, they never even changed the admin password, and now we're saying, monitor your network. They're freaking out at this second. They're freaking out. So what can they do? You could still do the other things, like have that conversation. You could still install Circle or those apps, or get a friend to help you do that. You could still have a password manager, even if you don't want to write them down somewhere, but you could still anyone, even a non-tech person, can figure out Keep Pass or LastPass or something like that. A password manager you could share that allows you to check on your kids. We found that having that open communication and saying to my daughter, like, look, once every quarter or once a year, we're going to log in and check your accounts randomly just to make sure there's nothing hidden. Them knowing that, and they don't know when it's going to happen, it's kind of like a pen test for your kids. It's telling them at some point during this year, we're going to check all your stuff. We're not going to tell you when. So, if you're really going to be that devoted to hiding stuff, you better figure it out early, because we're gonna be checking randomly whenever we feel. And then we tell her, if we get worried about you, we'll check more often. It's
a great point, Jeff. One, just 2 points before we get to Jeff's question. One, I also tell my kids that people on the internet will lie to you. Like, whatever they're saying is a lie. Also, anytime I have the opportunity to speak to kids in our community, like this morning was a great opportunity. There was 4 or 5 or 6 middle schoolers, right? We're standing there waiting for the bus on the first day of school. They started talking about other kids that got in trouble for doing things on the internet. And my neighbors know what I do. And I'm like, people are watching. In fact, I know the people that are watching, so don't do anything like that at school. And it kind of goes back to what you're saying, Chris, just like telling them that people are watching raises their awareness.
It does.
Jeff?
So, my kids are older, and frankly, I raised them in their teen years more or less before the age of smartphones. So this might be dated, but I think there's also practical parenting things you can do before you start looking at technology solutions. I mean, when my kids were growing up, we had a home PC, and that was it. But that was really their only access to the internet, which I know, everybody's got so much technology these days, but we had rules about you're only going to be on the internet. The PC was in the kitchen. It was in a public place in the house, so they weren't squirreled off somewhere. The idea of having screen time and having rules about how long you're going to be on a device. I don't know if anybody does that anymore. I might be completely out of touch with reality, but or even simply as parents having ahead of time, before the kids are pressuring you, if your kids are younger, what is the age when you allow them to have a smart device in the first place? I think it happens far too younger than I'm comfortable with. I don't know if Chris has a comment on that or not, but we could all have a different opinion, but I think it's at least a question that parents need to discuss amongst themselves. When are we going to expose our kids to all this stuff, knowing what's out there?
For me, it's a hard one, because we don't have a home phone, and I travel 40 between 40 and 60% of the time I'm traveling. I need to be able to communicate with my daughter when I need to. So that meant getting her a cell phone probably earlier than I really wanted. That doesn't mean I have to buy her a device and leave it untethered and she can do whatever she wants. Right? So if my family and the way we work and live means she needs to have a cell phone earlier than I wanted to do that in life, or any parent wants to, then you have to take responsibility to make sure you disable things, or like you said, monitor things, or have off time. This topic of screen time is a huge topic right now, but I think parents don't know how to do it. I think every family is different. First of all, for us, we felt like we can't just say that to my daughter, like, hey, you need to have less screen time, but yet I'm on my phone myself. Mm-hmm. So you have to lead by example. And so we do things like where we will take a weekend trip, like let's go to the beach for the weekend, right? And we'll say for one of these days, all of us are going to put our cell phones in a box, and we're just going to enjoy nature. We're just going to talk. We're going to hang out. We're going to play card games. We're gonna sit around and have this conversation, and it's not going to involve our cell phones. And then we will do that also. We will take our devices with hers, put them in a box, and they go away. So that way she sees that the rules are equal across the board for the family, and it's not me sitting there with my cell phone going, "Hey, honey, you need to be less on the screen, less. Let me text this to you." It's I'm following the rules that I'm giving to her also.
To Jeff's point too, you got to be involved with your kids, and some of that may involve technology, right? Like, my son's on Instagram, and if I see a question, my wife's like, he's got this kind of questionable post. I'm like, what's this? Right? Yeah. Like, you're not in trouble. We should talk about it and take it down, right? And realize that mom sees it, I see it, dad's friends see it, right? Like, remember when you went to the conference and everyone knew, like, you're my son. It's not like people see it. And it's not just I see it or my wife sees it or my friends see it. It's everyone can see it, right? That was a teachable moment for him, that like whatever you put online, dude, everyone is going to see, right?
And for me, it was easier when I was on Microsoft. Microsoft, I said, had some really good tools. I said, guys, look, at 9 o'clock, the machine's off. You can't get to it. And then I got on phones, and then I went all Mac and all Apple, and I'm like, I don't have the same capabilities anymore. It's harder now.
Circle gives that to you in the home, and the apps, I think Chris mentioned, give that to you on the devices.
And also for an iPhone, there's actually something built into the iPhone called Screen Time.
Yep.
So it's in the settings. You can set a password that's just password just for you, that your kids don't know it.
Yep.
And you could say every night at 9 p.m., your phone no longer works. It's disabled.
Yeah.
Now, the thing it doesn't give you the ability to remotely change that. So what I liked about Custodio was, my daughter's going to go visit her brother, and he lives not in the same state as us. So she's going to be out of town for a few days away from us. And I want to make sure that if she needs me 24 hours a day, she can, so I can disable her downtime while she's traveling. So that way there's not a moment where she's like, crap, I can't call anyone because my phone's shut off.
Yeah.
And I can do that remotely by using some of these apps as opposed to having to be in person.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember doing all the research on the Apple side, and it was like you had to set up your own account, but then it was if your kids were over 13, you couldn't put them on your parent account. They had to have their own individual account. Well, that's a royal pain in the butt. It's just a pain in the butt.
I know.
So they did change that. The new version of Screen Time, you literally can log in with their account, just set a new password. It's a Screen Time password, and it could be like 4 to 6 digits. And then you can set all the options, and they can't change it, even though they're admins on the phone.
Got it.
No, so you can do that, but again, it's not remote. But it does. We used it for a long time with my daughter to give her a curfew. Like at this time your phone's going off. So, and she knew it, and she would be with her friends. I can hear her talking to her friends, and she's like, "I got 5 more minutes, then my phone's shutting off."
Yeah.
And
my son has this amazing ability to just glean those 4 to 6 digit passcodes to, like, they got the locks in the house.
Really?
I'm like, dude, how did you? I'm like, you know what? Oh God! And like he'll shoulder surf you and like watch it. Like I'm like, oh man, it's all about education, right?
Maybe there's a future intern position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, seriously. How old is he now? Is he looking for a job?
Yeah, he's 11.
He's 11. He's still a little young, but.
A little young, yeah.
I mean, my daughter was hacking my Wi-Fi at about 13.
Yeah,
and it was like because I had controls at the router too, and she's busting in and changing them all, and I'm like, you're 13, stop it.
Yeah.
Like half of us wants to be like, I'm so proud that you figured this out. Yes. The other half wants to be like, dang you, why did you have to do this?
Absolutely. So, Chris, where can people find out more information? I know you're also doing an SEVillage coming up in Orlando, 2020.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
If you want to know more about ILF, it's innocentliesfoundation.org. And you can find out everything about what we do, our mission, how we do it. You can support us by joining the cause. You can support us by donating. We have some parental guides out there that can help parents learn about the things we just talked about, how to monitor your kids and things like that. So there's a lot of info on there. Word of caution for anyone who's sadly had to deal with this in their life. Some of the blog posts and content, we talk about the deep, dark, scary stuff that's happening in the world. I won't mention it all here, but I like to give that warning to people that there are some really dark blog posts because we had to talk about certain things that were occurring. So, read the titles before you jump right in. If something's going to trigger you or make you feel bad, please don't engage in it. We don't want that to happen. But InnocentLivesFoundation.org is the everything that's out there. The conference, which I'm super excited about. We kind of 10 years now running SEVillage at DEF CON, and we said, we have so many people coming in saying we'd love to see like a conference just about social engineering, and we know that the Layer 8 is up in your neck of the woods, which started a couple of years ago. I think it was like now going on its third year, right?
Yes, third year, correct.
So we had this concept of taking everything we did at the Village, but just taking it away from like the hacker realm and bringing it to a professional training conference that can allow for people to experience all of the things that SE has to offer, but leave with an environment that they got trained. So we decided to kick it off February 2020. So it's February 20th, 21, and 22 of 2020 in Orlando. So nice time for the winter to be down here. Mm-hmm. And the website for that is SEVillage.org. So people could check that out, see the lineup. We the first idea I had was to invite some of the podcast guests I had over the years that I got to meet and know and get to be friends with, invite them to come do workshops. So I got R. Paul Wilson coming from the UK. He was on The Real Hustle. Mm-hmm. I got Ian Rowland, who's like the granddaddy of cold reading. I got Joe Navarro, who's like the mother of the inventor of all the body language research. Mm-hmm. Robin Dreek, who was the BAU director for the FBI, doing one on rapport. I got an actress coming in doing things. It just goes on and on, but it's just like so many amazing people. Dov Barron's coming. We got Amanda Berlin from our community doing awesome. A mental health workshop there. So it's just a lot of different training events that are going to take place over that weekend over here in Orlando.
And Chris, we did some recordings at SEVillage at DEF CON this year. Yeah. I want to thank you and the team for allowing us to do that. We ended up doing like 8 interviews over there with different folks from the SE side of the house. Thank you very much for supporting us in that effort as well, because we had some great content. Yeah, you had a great location too.
Yeah, I mean, the location that we had for you, it just worked out that we didn't know what the room looked like before we got there. And then when you guys showed up, it was like perfect to have that whole section that can give you some peace and quiet and a nice area to set up your booth and stuff and be able to do that.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad it worked out.
Chris, thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing everything that you did. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.
I think people that want to get into social engineering and pen testing learned something, and I'm going to share this with, my friends and family who have kids, certainly, right? Because there's some great recommendations on that front as well. So,
thank you. This was a lot of fun as always.
That will conclude the show for this evening. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Over and out.